Okay, this pump here has a housing gasket leak, which causes the pump to lose its prime, and the water drains out of the pump. Okay, here's what you're going to need for the project. You're going to need a new housing gasket. You need a 9/16 wrench. You need another wrench to hold 2 bolts when I get to that point. And you're going to need, I put silicone around the housing gasket. Sometimes the pump warps after it melts, and so this creates a good seal. And you see that the pump is actually draining down now. There's air forming in there from that leak, and it's slowly draining down. I'm going to go ahead and change the housing gasket. It's a fairly easy job. There's 6 bolts that hold this one on. Same thing with the Hayward Super 2. So you just take off these 6 bolts. Okay, when you get to these 2 bolts, you're going to need to put a wrench to hold that nut on, and it simply comes right off once you hold that nut. There's 2 of these. Okay, and there's the 3rd bolt is right underneath the motor itself, so let's get this one off. And it's the same pattern on either side. You have 3 bolts, one on top, one in the middle that you need to hold with another wrench, and one on the bottom of the motor. Okay, now you just simply pull the pump right off. The motor right off. Right out like that. And here's the housing gasket right here. Fits in this housing gasket's right here. And let's go ahead and pop this housing gasket off. It does look kind of worn, so let me get it out. Comes right out. And as you can see, it's pretty worn right here in the corners. That's probably where it's leaking from. It just gets worn out over time, especially if the pump overheats and melts. And it should snap in pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, the same pattern the other one was in. Okay, and it may seem looser than the other one. You might have trouble sometimes with it. This one feels a little bit looser than the other one, but it's going in there pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put some silicone on here, and I'm going to reinsert it. Okay, so I applied the silicone around the gasket here. I'm going to go ahead and reinsert it to make sure the gasket stays in place when you reinsert it. Sometimes they tend to come back out. Not in there quite as tight as the old one. So I'm going to press down on the bottom. I'm going to hold the bottom part of the gasket while I reinsert it and hold the top in. Make sure it goes in there good. Okay. Put the bolts back in. You want to hold on to it while you put the bolt in. That way it doesn't move and knock the gasket out. So I got the top one, I'm putting the bottom bolt in right now. Okay, now that we have all those in there hand tight, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the bolts. I'm going to go from the bottom up. I'm going to go this one first, and I'll cross over to the one on top. I'll show you. Okay, I put the bottom one. I'm going to do this one here. Put it in a little bit. Then I'm going to do this one here. It's kind of like putting on a tire. You want to do it so that it's like a star pattern. And then I'll do these 2 right now. These last 2. Okay, I'm going to fill this with water. And you want to make sure all the bolts are really tight too. Make sure. It's filling up right now with water, priming. Okay, I turned everything back on. I don't see any leaks. Let me turn it off to see if it stops the leak. And as you can see, the water is staying in the pump basket. And if you have a Stay Right or an older pump, it has a clamp that's holding it on. You just simply take the clamp off, and then the pump just comes right off, and there's the housing gasket right there. It's much easier actually than the Purex or Hayward Super 2 pumps. So again, it just has a clamp holding the pump and the motor together. You just remove the clamp, and it's really easy to do.